That's a good button to hit and remember. And welcome to Discussing Tabletop, everybody. I hope you're having a fine day. It is, of course, the beginning of July. I hope everybody's having a good one with that. It is July 6th. Nice day. Feels good to be on in July. You know, we're hit that halfway mark of the year, definitely. How has your week been, Worm?
Honestly, a lot of stuff has been happening lately. Between finding an apartment, dealing with my whole tooth issue, which I'm not sure how much of that explained on your channel.
There was a chunk of it, definitely, that we talked about.
Still working with an artist to get a whole new setup of art for my channel. Yeah, doing a lot.
I had to chat with you because I want to see which artist you're working on, because that you're working with, just as an idea and like their style and stuff, and see if it'd be interesting for you. Because you know, if you're seeing you doing a good job. I know you had some like communications things, but it didn't sound like it was too bad.
No, it was just I just had to learn kind of like not to give too much information because she doesn't know what to do with that.
Yes. Makes sense. We'll have to chat all soon. But we got a docket today of some interesting topics. We're gonna start with, of course, the 2024 stuff. Again, we have some more to talk about there. Not everything to talk about with that. Then, I'll put the docket in the chat here. We are going to talk a little bit about Paizo. They have another class in their Starfinder playtest. The ENNIE Nominations are out, which is the Tabletop Awards, which I don't think we've ever talked about, but I've known about. And I think are they normally at Gen Con? Maybe. It's a fan-based tabletop gaming awards, so it's less professional and stuff. You know, it's people that we can talk about it. Roll20 got hacked. We can talk about that.
Oh, again?
At least this week.
I mean, the last time was years ago.
Yes. Again.
But they had been hacked before, so yeah. That's why I'm like, again?
Again. We're getting a Moria book from One Ring, and I almost forgot to put it. I don't have it in the docket for Twitch. We got a Kickstarter from Momo that they provided for us. We couldn't join, but they gave us Kickstarter to check out. Mausoleum. So we'll talk about that too at the end. Alright, so why don't we start with D&D this week, because I do have a deeper discussion topic and it's not going to be long. Because we did get a little bit more, and I want to revisit an interesting discussion point that I heard brought up about the Ranger. We'll do that last. We'll talk about the new stuff first. So we got crafting, and they went over a little bit more of it, and the nature of it. I have to be honest, I didn't dive into the crafting too much. It was like it was a pretty short video, though. Let me go over to their YouTube page and see, like...
Oh, yeah, and they didn't have a, it's 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's 5 minutes on crafting.
Yeah, and it does seem like they are so they do include it.
We don't know a lot about it. It's fine. It's a cool thing to add in and actually have rules for. There's going to be a little bit for like potions and scrolls in the player's handbook. Yeah. Most of it, if we're going to look for it, look for the DMG.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't actually make they made a video, but they didn't make a post about it on their
D&D Beyond. They didn't. So. They did talk a little bit about the new spells on D&D Beyond. But yeah, the crafting just was. The thing is, it did go very under the radar, but it is one of those ones that I like point out. I'm like, that's kind of a big deal, and you don't make it a big deal. But I guess it's like maybe it's just simple.
crafting isn't a big deal because it really depends. Like crafting only matters if your game uses it. I mean, not every game has time for crafting, which is why I wouldn't consider it a big deal. In addition, I would say that
I can see that point for it.
Yeah,
I was kind of more on the opinion of the big deal because it makes it for adaptability in items, especially for potions and scrolls sometimes, which can be very helpful. And that's the basics that I think is the important part. In this case, the bigger items, not as much, because they are, as you said, time, money, not situational.
Yeah. So I do agree that it's good for players to be able to craft things, and to have rules for them. Hope they're good. Honestly, I can't. So I didn't watch the video, but I'm reading like someone who reviewed the video. I'm reading an article about someone who reviewed the video. Actually, I could post that.
Okay. Please do. I don't.
There you go. But you know, they really don't go into detail on it, which makes me think they don't in the video either.
I'm sure they don't.
So
we're probably not going to know more about that one until later.
I assume it's going to be an expansion on the crafting in Xanathars.
I'll link their YouTube page for these for their things too, because that's a good one for at least those two. And then we'll so you can see this video for yourself. The other thing was, of course, the spells, which we did have a article on D&D Beyond that goes along with it, other than the video, detailing some changes to some spells and some new spells. So they are doing spells like Tasha's Bubbling Cauldron, Joralze, Storm of Radiance. They're connecting with more of they're doing more of those character-based spells, which I think are fine. You know,
yeah.
They do add flavor. It's neat. Like they've Starry Wisp as a new cantrip. They were included in the Arcana playtests. But there are also some spells that weren't. So we are getting a mixture of those that you might have already seen from the playtests, some that you didn't. And then, of course, you know, definitely updates to some to old spells, too.
I don't think they'd ever do this, but I would love to see some kind of spell crafting rule. You could probably find someone who's done this, but I think because there is clearly a rhyme and reason to how they do their spells. Like, what gets what power at when, and I'd love to it'd be kind of fun. Like, I mean, obviously the easiest way to craft a spell is to basically be like, this does psychic damage, it now does radiant damage, you know?
Which I could say that's an easy, like, homebrew if you want to do that one. At the very least, that's a simple one. It does this other type of damage, which certain types of damage might increase the spell level just because of the, you know, things like the big... I don't know if they would necessarily say it, but I would feel like there are some more basic elements and some less basic elements, you know?
Yes, I agree. Like, if you wanted to change to psychic, there's a lot less things with psychic resistance, so it's technically a little bit more powerful. Same with force, although I think that's changing, so who knows now. If you wanted to change it to poison, I'd lower the spell level for you. No, I'm just kidding.
It might be the same now,
I know.
since they are less. Like, some of the big updates that we do know about are like the Conjure Fate, Conjure Celestial have been updated to actually be usable and not annoying.
Yeah, those are more annoying for GMs, where it's like, oh, you have use a bunch of things from that are this CR or lower, and it's just like, oh gosh, which is super unbalanced. Yeah. No, I know they've been trying to find a way to remove that. It's like, oh,
I think it's just
50 things of this CR or 20 things of this CR.
Yeah, I think there's supposed to be like just one creature that now is the form isn't what's important. It's just basically got stats based on the spell. And, you know, then it's just the form it takes is kind of up to you, I guess.
I am totally okay with that, honestly.
Me too.
Yeah, I know some people are like, I want to be able to summon a bugbear or whatever. No, bugbear. I meant owlbear is what I meant to say. But it's like, so just give it doesn't matter.
You can just say it looks like one.
Abstraction is important for the purposes of not making everything annoying.
God, it's why I both love-hate summoning in other games and stuff too, like Pathfinder First Edition. Summoning's a headache. It can be interesting and helpful, but it's so close to the edge of abuse that I'm like, it's a headache, and I just don't want to bother with it 99% of the time, because you can actually creature spam.
Yeah. I'm curious, actually, because I know they have, like, companion rules in Pathfinder 2e, and I know that has something to do with summoning.
They do have some summoning rules, too, in 2e. I forget what they are. I had looked into them for my bard a little bit that I played through to, like, 10th level. So, yeah. But I can't remember exactly where that was off the top of my head. But again, we also just, while you're looking that up, we do have, some other updates of various things and spells and stuff, and, like Cure Wounds does 2d8 plus spellcasting modifier, Healing Word does 2d4 plus modifier. Both of them make them much better spells as a base. I'm not going to lie. That's the other thing is, I think I have always been on the kind of cautionary side that, I'm not as extreme as some people have been, like, in our group that have been, like, never use healing in combat. I'm more like situationally use healing in combat, or just use Healing Word. But with them healing more, it means more now, I think that's important, and that makes a difference and stuff like that.
Okay, so they basically let you summon, in 2e, they basically let you summon one monster from the monster manual. That as long as it fits the type, and then they have a creature rank per level. So it's like a first level spell can summon a -1, a second level spell can summon level 1, third level spell can summon level 2, etc.
So it balances out by just saying it has to be up to a certain level, and that's what you get.
You only get one. So it's like if you want to summon one of a lower level with a higher level spell slot, you can. But
that's right, I remember that.
But you can only ever summon one, which is, I think, totally fine.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot of, like, updates to spells. We're gonna see a bunch of things that'll maybe be tweaked and, like, made a little different. It'll be fine.
I'm still praying that concentration has some kind of change. It just makes, or that a lot of spells have removed the concentration requirement.
So,
because I don't think they will, but I'm hoping for it.
So it doesn't sound very good towards that, and I will tell you it's because of stuff I heard from the Ranger and how it works now. So,
do we want to move on to the Ranger?
Yeah. Let's talk about the Ranger again. We've talked about the Ranger before, and we went over its things. But I did not realize some of the way... Because I knew there was some discourse about the Ranger, people being annoyed about it, but I was kind of like, I don't know what they're talking about.
Oh, like the new Ranger?
The new Ranger. I did see a very good breakdown by, I think it was D&D Schwartz, did a very good breakdown of why people are annoyed about the Ranger. And it all has to do with the way they're setting up action economy and concentration and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that, like Hunter's Mark is a concentration spell, and you're basically, that's the worst part about the Ranger currently, is that Hunter's Mark is their best thing, and they always have to concentrate it.
Yes, and that's the big thing that they're doing now, is that is a bonus action, you have to concentrate on it, and a lot of abilities are actually revolve around the Hunter's Mark now, for a lot of their class abilities. And so, like, it's the trade-off of, do I want to do the Hunter's Mark, which a lot of my abilities as a Ranger get better with Hunter's Mark. Basically, my Hunter's Mark improves as I level up, which makes it a lot better. And I eventually do get rid of concentration at high levels, but that's high levels I no longer have to concentrate on Hunter's Mark. Or do I want to use some of my other spells, or actually other abilities from my subclass? And it's going to be a thing that I think is going to be an interesting discussion. Yes, the Ranger is I'd say comparable to Tasha's Ranger for strength. It's fine. There's not a major update. I think we talked about it.
Well, here's my thought about it. The current Ranger centers around Hunter's Mark anyway, even if you don't realize it. Because Hunter's Mark is just such a powerful spell compared to everything else the Ranger can do.
Yeah.
That, why wouldn't you use it? It's like, most of the other spells, like, I'm trying to remember... There's one that's like a plant thing that so basically I'm playing a game, right? I'm playing Solasta right now. And basically there are 3 spells I basically use that are concentration with my Ranger. I use almost no other spells. One is conjure animal, which, has its uses. And I use that if I need more action economy, basically. And then the other is, I forget what it's called, but it's where you summon a bunch of plants in an area and they take damage as you walk through it. I'm trying to remember what that's called. Let me actually go. I'm actually have the book right here, so I might as well go and see and look at the Ranger spell list to see if I can remember what it's called. Ranger, Bard, Cleric. Ranger, second level.
I think the thing is, yes, it's a very important part of their class, but a lot of your abilities don't necessarily rely on Hunter's Mark to use a lot of your old abilities, the old version.
No, the old version was terrible, though.
I know, but I'm saying that Tasha's improved that a little bit. And in this one, it's gone a different direction where, like, Precise Hunter, Foe Slayer, a lot of other abilities that you get that are very good abilities rely on Hunter's Mark to have that now. It's one of those things that makes it it's not impossible, but it does make it a harder choice to choose between any of your other things and Hunter's Mark a lot of times. And I think that was the concern. It wasn't that it was, like, bad. It was just more of a concern that it might just make Rangers a little bit more... We might see them go a little bit more generic. I think is the way I kind of saw it when it was being described.
In my mind, you just have to choose based on certain tactical points. Like Spike Growth, I love that spell. If there is a choke point, and you are not at the level where everything can fly, because that kind of gets to a point where a lot of things can fly, it is the most broken spell, because no one can get to you without taking buttloads of damage. I love that spell.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that that's not really good. It's just that things when you get to, like, Precise Hunter being like, I have advantage in all attacks against something I have Hunter's Mark on. That's just so good.
I agree. And I feel like most of the time you're going to have Hunter's Mark. The fact that you also can't, level 13, you literally can't break your concentration is so good. Because that's honestly the worst part about Hunter's Mark is because I don't know if they're going to change it, but currently you don't get Constitution save proficiency as a Ranger.
No. I mean, so I kind of agree with the fact that Foe Slayer is fine. It's not great. It's just a D10 force instead of a D6 damage. It's like, that's not a lot for 20th level, but it's okay. Yeah, I mean, there's some other... I do agree that, like, I mean, if they do that, I hope they take away the concentration on things like, like Entangling Shot or whatever. Yes, if they take away concentration on some other things, I think that'd be very good. And I think it's just the thing that situations might make it better to use some of the other abilities, but I think it's like one of those things is it a good or bad thing to default to Hunter's Mark so heavily? I don't know. It could be fine. No, because I do it all the time when I do Rangers anyway. Yeah, I think... I haven't really done a lot with Rangers. But I do know Hunter's Mark is one of the normal ones most do. From playing with other people that have played Rangers, they don't always use Hunter's Mark, though. I feel like they a lot of the people that I've seen, because I think, like, Linda's played some, Cell's played some, I think Momo's played some. I would really have to ask all of them what they would think, about the more concentration on that. But also, like, is that just their default anyway? Because that might just be the thing, too. It's like, this might not technically be much of a change. I'm finding it that... But the thing is, there is a discourse around this. That people think this is neutering them I kind of go with the agreement that, nah, this isn't really much of a change. It thematically might theoretically change things a little bit. Again, like, maybe it's pushing, again, that Hunter's Mark concentration of their abilities a little bit more, but is that necessarily bad? No.
Yeah. Let me put it this way. Do you want the old ranger who can't do anything, or the new ranger who can't, or who doesn't have any useful abilities, or the new ranger who doesn't have any useful abilities if they're not concentrating on Hunter's Mark? It's like, if those are your two options, I'd rather have the second, where they actually have useful abilities.
Agreed. So, that's kind of my stance on the discourse here. It's a weird discourse. It exists. Just keep that in mind.
I'd consider it, they kind of, in a way, turn the ranger into a hunter, which I'm fine with.
True.
It's kind of more of a beast hunter in a way, you know? I mean, yes, there's a hunter subclass, but it's like, yeah.
I think the final comment I heard, which was an interesting one, is we'd have to see the full subclasses to know if...
I agree.
Because if there's a lot of bonus actions in some of the subclasses, that might begin to get that kind of, like, bonus actions or concentration type abilities or stuff like that. In those subclasses, it might begin to have those troubles of balancing out those things, which is one of those things that can kind of be an annoying complexity that's not needed in 5e. I've played some characters that have been like, I have to choose between like a lot of different choices for my, like, what's my bonus action this turn? What's my bonus action this turn? You know?
It is, yeah. In fact, like, I don't think there is one that does this in the actual game, but in Solasta, one of my favorite things is that they give you a, I did pick, like, one that is focused on the bow, because there's a subclass that's like bow master or something like that. I forget what it's called. And one of my favorite things is like, yeah, I can Hunter's Mark, but one of the other actions is, like, basically you can disengage as a bonus action, and I'm all like, yes! Now you can, or, you know, and it's just like, oh my gosh, that makes a bow ranger actually worthwhile. But that's obviously a subclass feature, so it's just like, I don't know, it's just kind of like, you know, there are ways to make things work.
Yeah. We can move on, though. Again, there wasn't a huge visit to D&D today. I know a shocker. They didn't release a lot, and, you know, we just had a little bit to talk about.
Yeah. They haven't actually gone... I'm surprised, because I thought they were going to go through every class, but apparently they weren't.
I think they've gone through most of them, and we might see some more... They might spread it out a little bit more now. I think this is their big push pre-Gen Con, and we'll see a bunch at Gen Con, maybe a little bit more before then. And then probably there's going to be a little bit of stuff leading up to the actual release in September.
Yeah, because they did 7 out of 10? Or is it 12? No, it's 12.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to count. I mean, obviously not the Artificer, but...
Yeah. Well, will we see the Artificer again? Who knows?
Probably. I assume we will.
I actually don't know. There's a bunch of content that it sounds like they
12.
Just removed... What? Oh, 12. That's right. There's a bunch of contents that sounds like they might not be interested in revisiting, which is, like, it's legacy content. It doesn't mean it couldn't be used, but it does mean, like, when you're technically using the new rules, it's the same kind of thing as we talked about as it's sort of backwards compatible, you know?
Yes. It's technically only forwards compatible, which I like.
Yeah. I think, again, and that's not necessarily a careful idea, but it was like a...
Yeah. No, they went from... Yeah, no, and that's technically what it is. It's forwards compatible instead of backwards compatible. I was worried about, like, taking the new things and putting them in the old rules.
Oh, God. Yeah, no. That, I didn't think they'd go that far, but I thought
they were going to say... honestly, early on, the way they talked about it, I thought they were going to be mix and match, have fun. And I'm going to be like, oh, gosh, this is so poorly.
I thought that was going to be mix and match, but with the new rules. That's what I was worried about, the way they were talking about it. I'm fine with what they're doing here, a forward compatible, that's fine. There's a lot of systems that are like that anyway. But hey, you know what would be really good? Having adaptation rules. Just give us slight adaptation rules for older content to adapt it to the new stuff. And you know what? I'd be fine with that, because they do that so many times between other editions. Granted, this is not really another edition, it's a slight upgrade, but, you know, it's the same kind of concept. Same. Let's talk about the Starfinder playtest. Solarian. So I don't actually know a lot about the Solarian, and I don't remember if it was a base class or not from the original Player's Handbook. Let me see what book it was originally.
They are cool. They are cool.
Oh, it was core. It was core. They basically use like star power and stuff like that.
Yeah, they basically it's almost like a cleric who binds himself to a star or a stellar body rather than like a god. It's really cool. It's a really cool concept. You know, like you get gravity magic if you're magic if you bind yourself to like a black hole, or there's like a young star or a neutron star, and it's like you can do different things.
Yeah. It's a very interesting class. They do have the first edition still up, but this is the second edition playtest of it out. So again, I feel like they released like a little bit each of their playtests. And it's nice that we're getting one this close to getting up to Gen Con, that we're getting another one. Because we're going to see a little bit more on the playtest rulebook that you can either purchase or get for a free PDF download at the time of Gen Con. Again, that's also something I'm okay with. It's like, if you get the PDF for free, or if you want to pay for a physical copy, we'll get it bound and booked and shipped for you. And I'm like, that's a fine option for playtest.
Oh, yeah, so you don't have to choose between armor or weapon anymore, which is cool.
Well, that's good. That's neat.
Yeah, because before you either have to wear normal armor and have a cool weapon, or wear cool armor and have a normal weapon.
So that's cool. That probably makes them a little bit better for their abilities. I think that they're looking at some things that were like, you know, what people liked about them and didn't like, and probably tweaking that too. You know, so.
Yeah, right. And each of them have different manifestations, whether you're graviton attuned, photon attuned, or whatever. I don't know all the details of it. I mean, look.
Yeah. I looked at these class only a little bit, the Solarians, only a little bit. I didn't dive deep into it, so I couldn't tell you a lot about them overall and how they function. I believe the only time I think I played Soldier. Yeah, I played like something really simple the one time I played for like a session of Starfinder. So I kept it simple. Not gonna lie. I was like, I'm gonna be lazy and keep things simple.
Oh, wait, I thought this was a core rulebook. Apparently it's not. Apparently I don't own the core rulebook. I do own the core rulebook actually online. I thought I also owned it in person. That's the thing gave it to me. I backed a Humble bundle that gave it to me, and I thought I got the core rulebook, but this is the first time I actually looked at the book. Apparently, it's not. So I got one physical book out of it.
Okay. So yeah, if you're interested in continuing to test out second edition Starfinder and get the update to the Solarian, you can now. So check it out. I don't think there's much else to say other than that. So
yeah. I think Solarians are cool. I would definitely want to play one if I ever was in a Starfinder game.
It's an interesting idea. So let's talk about some tabletop awards, which I've known about but don't know a lot about. We'll try to get some background information about these things.
Okay, so this is the nominees for each category.
These are, yes.
They haven't been. Have they been chosen yet?
No, because they're going to be presented at Gen Con.
Got it.
I guess it's been an annual thing to announce the winners at Gen Con. Which is fine. I mean, Gen Con's one of the biggest tabletop conventions. One year I will actually be able to go there. One day.
Oh, it's a found footage horror inspired TTRPG. That sounds interesting.
Yeah,
kind of
so
looking at the different things.
The categories are Judges Spotlight winners, Best Adventure Long Form, Best Adventure Short Form, Best Aid or Accessory Digital, Best Aid or Accessory Non-Digital, Best Art Cover, Best Art Interior, Best Cartography, Best Community Content, Best Family Game / Product, Best Free Game / Product, Best Game, Best Layout and Design, Best Monster / Adversary, Best Online Content, Best Production Values, Best RPG-related Product, Best Rules, Best Setting, Best Streaming Content, Best Supplement, Best Writing, and Product of the Year. I'll give the list of the Product of the Year stuff, at least. The CBR plus PNK augmented by Mythic Works, Eat the Reich by Rowan, Rook, and Deckard, Korok, A Magical Year by Mausoleum Press, Not the End by Mana Project Studios, Outcast Silver Raiders Box Set by Ludology LLC, Outgunned by Two Little Mice, Salvage Union by Leyline Press, Shadow Dark RPG by Arcane Library, Valley Flowers by Phantom Hill Games, and Vampire the Masquerade 5th Edition, The Book of Nod, Deluxe Artifact Edition by Renegade Game Studios. I heard that the Book of Nod book is pretty good. 5e. I'm glad it kind of seems like it is. Or at least it's just on there because it's fancy.
Oh, wow. Best Setting, Pathfinder Lost Omens TNZ World Guide is on there. Best Setting.
I would not be surprised, as that's a really interesting expansion to the Galarian world that they did a good job of.
Yeah, they did add a whole lot to Galarian in one go, so...
And it looks like the Pathfinder Player Core is on there, too, with the best rules for this year.
Oh, yeah, there.
Yeah.
Savage Union. I've heard of that. Did I buy that somewhere?
I don't think we... Did we talk about Savage Union? I don't think we did. Leyline Press.
I think
we did not. Oh, wait, or did we?
I think we did. Savage Union, or Oh, sorry, no. We talked about Savage Union. This is Salvage Union. Okay, that's why it sounded familiar, or my dyslexia?
It's the problem that a lot of these things, like, I'm sure, like, I've missed out on and talking about. So if you look in the website, there's like a fan award for best publisher. There's judge applications, submissions, the judges, sponsors. It's an award show.
Mm-hmm.
So
also, the thing I'm thinking of is Savage Worlds, not Savage Union. Anyway, I'm just wrong on all levels.
Yeah. So I guess, like, pretty much, it looks like anybody could apply to be a judge, but there's, like, an application process that you go through and find out.
I'm surprised there isn't a single thing by Wizards on here. I'm both surprised and not surprised.
Yes. If I look back at the last year, I don't think there's been anything major or earth-shattering that they've really done.
I agree. I can't think of a really big... Like, Tasha's wasn't this year. That was 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so... And they haven't released any big adventures that I'm aware of.
And I think for the cutoff for this event, we're already at that point in time, so we might not see anything from them. Like, I can try to, like, quickly look through here, but yeah. Certainly, we'll have to see how D&D 2024 goes, because it could be nominated next year.
Yeah.
I would hope that if it actually is very good, it gets that for that reason, rather than for legacy reasons. But we'll have to see. It's definitely something I'll keep in mind. Free League's on Best Cartography twice for the RPG Alien, the Alien RPG Building Better Worlds, and for the Dragon's Bane core set. They're good at maps.
Yeah, Best Cartography twice, and they're also in Best Supplement.
Yeah.
Also for the Alien RPG.
Let's see here. You know, I could have sworn the My Little Pony game was older, but it probably was last year.
I think we talked about it this year. Honestly, it rings a bell.
Well, it was Renegade did My Little Pony, Transformers, and G.I. Joe, and I could have sworn they'd been out for like a couple years, but I think it was just last year that all three of them came out, and it's just that my brain is just like not recognizing that.
So it's more just that I think there was like a big update to it. Like it was like it wasn't like a First off, I do know there are like others, but I remember we talked about it at some point this year. And so it must have been like either a new one or like a different studio.
Well, I think
now has a new one
Renegade does it now too. There was older games that were based on there. There was a couple of them. It is like the third one that's been done from the My Little Pony. Mm-hmm. There was the one that's there's like a there was a basically My Little Pony knockoff, and then Tales from Equestria, was it? That was its own RPG line. I think it was, if I'm recalling, because I think that was the one that Joe read up on a free quick start when that was released.
Tales from Equestria is the one I think we talked about.
I will always remember Joe basically read through all those rules, but I didn't have a chance to on a quick start for it. And he was like, I've done this for the show. Thanks, Joe. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff on here. If you want to check the full list, I've linked the nominees, charts, and I guess we'll see who wins what when it comes to Gen Con.
Yeah.
You know?
And then we'll probably talk about it.
Oh yeah, I think that would be a good chance to kind of talk about some of the winners and stuff and see about, like, how, stuff that maybe we missed that it's good stuff to talk about from during the, year. Alright. So, now, I originally got an email about this, but I'm going to link an article about it, too. Which was, and I'll open up my email here, because I actually have to do that. So I can read up what the email I got was. Because I did get an email from Roll20. Where is your... I didn't delete that, did I? I could have, because I'm an idiot. Or was... Oh, no, it was over here. There it is. So apparently on the 29th, at 6:30, an administrative account was compromised. And by 7:30, they blocked the access and began investigating. Third party had gotten access to their administration tools and exposed personal information. First and last name, email address, last known IP address, and the last 4 digits of a credit card. Only if you stored payment. They do know that they did not get exposure of full passwords or payment information, or addresses and stuff like that connecting to payment information.
The biggest thing I will say is now if you have a Roll20 account, watch out for fake emails from Roll20 because they have emails now.
Yep.
Send out mass email lists to faking Roll20 to try and get things. So. Yep. That's gonna be my big takeaway from this.
Oh yeah, that you might get spam emails from this.
Yeah, well, it's better than the last one. The last one they actually got passwords.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was the email I got from them, and we did get. I linked the article about it. That's just a short one, going in about it, which has one of their statements that's not in the email, but yeah. Or is that from the email? And there is a helpline in Roll20 that's linked over here and stuff like that. An FAQ on their website about the incident. So there's a lot of nice links throughout it and information. So certainly speaking, we know what happened, and yeah, data breach.
Yeah, there it is. I see it too.
So, I don't know much else to say to this. It's sort of like one of those things is, if you feel comfortable changing things like passwords and stuff, I'd say go ahead and do it. Certainly, they do say it wasn't a breach that would have that, but that's on you to feel like how much trust you put in this.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm personally not worried for me. But you definitely, my big thing is fake Roll20 emails are not going to come because they got an email list. Like, it's the easiest way to try and get things from people. Like, oh, your credit card didn't go through. Please log into this fake website that we now control, and re-input your credit card info. You know?
Totally, we need it a second time. Don't worry about it. Provide us.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that will probably be coming, but it's probably not going to be everyone, and because they probably didn't, well, even if they got everyone, you know...
It's most likely whoever got it's probably going to, like, sell it to someone who then would use it, and then it depends on what they decide to use and stuff like that. And it's out there, though. Again.
Yep.
But I have to admit, like, at least my, the email I use for my Roll20 account's been out there plenty of times because cough, 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 cough. You know, people like, my mother be like, oh, I've used... No, I was gonna say, like, my mother liked to use, well, PlayStation, I think, does have an older one, maybe not this one. I don't know.
I was just gonna say, because I know PlayStation has been hacked like 3 times.
God, I haven't had a PlayStation account in a while, so I don't remember if that one was
Oh, they still store your info.
Well, that's what I mean, is I don't remember if it was this email or an older personal email that I don't use anymore.
Yep.
I have to see. But I was going to say, when my mother likes using emails, sometimes she uses mine instead of her own, depending on... If it's something that relates to me, she's like, I'm just going to use yours. And I'm like, you know, it's not related to me and you think it is. Mom. Older generations, though, so... It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, so that's kind of where we're at with that. If there's more to come to this entire thing or anything like that, I guess we have to kind of wait and see. Hopefully they'll continue to increase their security so we don't have to worry about more of this.
This is not a problem with security. This is, well, I mean it is, but it's a problem with, like, the fact that an admin account was compromised tells me that some dumb admin answered some dumb phishing email.
Mm-hmm.
That's how this works. Like, that's how 90% of leaks happen. We just went over, like, a whole security thing in my business, and I was just like... And I think I mean, I could probably go and look it up. But it's like... You know, emails and are, like, the #1 problem, and it's not even, like... Because emails are not safe. They are less safe because they're more easily accessible in certain ways. Yeah. But realistically, no, what's not safe about them is that people are dumb.
Yeah.
And the best part is, people who tend to make the most mistakes are CEOs and higher-ups, because they feel like they don't have to attend these they make people attend these how to avoid phishing emails, but then they think they're above it because they obviously won't happen to them, and then they the ones. It's actually very common.
What, is the CEO class not as good as they think they are and very above thou and just really good at making money? Which is not necessarily a terrible skill, but they use it oftentimes for evil rather than good?
It's less they're good at making money and good at using other people or to using their power to make money.
I was trying to be a little nice about it. I don't want to be completely... Because I'm not necessarily anti-capitalist. I'm just anti, like, you know...
Oh, I'm not either. I'm actually pro-capitalism. But, like, I think the way our current system structure... The common system structure of our current businesses is just terrible and not... And very bad.
It's taking the worst parts of capitalism, like any economic structure, if left unchecked, is bad. We're reaching unchecked capitalism. So we need a little bit of checks just to draw it back to that level that makes everybody happy with the system. Please.
I mean, we're not as bad as the truly unchecked capitalism that happened in the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, we're not there. Unchecked. We're not there. We're not there. Yeah. That's definitely. We're not. People aren't selling us like sawdust and glue for milk and stuff like that, you know.
And they're not making universal ban lists if you try and stand up for yourself, so you can never get a job again.
Yep. Haven't reached there yet. Hope we don't.
Anyway, let's move on.
That's our PSA on, please, capitalism. Don't go crazy. Look, we're in we've dealt with, because we're tabletop and video game industries, we've talked about some corporate stuff that's an issue. Hey, talking about Hasbro and a lot of their decisions with creative D&D are very, like, purely capitalistic stuff sometimes, and not the best decisions for overall, like, what is it? They want to have, like, super growth all the time when that's an unsustainable thing.
Yeah. I mean, they want exponential growth constantly when that's completely unsustainable in reality.
And that's a lot of corporations, unfortunately, now.
Oh, every corporation. Well, that's because those are the numbers they want. You know, like, again, that's actually, like, good for businesses, and in some ways good for the market to have those kind of increases. But it's also just not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yep. So, come on, Wizards. We want you to be not doing bad things, but not gonna lie, you know, the more I hear about, like, the we talked about the Assassin's Creed set a little bit. The more I've heard about it and what actual cards are in it, the Assassin's Creed Magic set.
The Magic set, yeah.
It's just bad.
Yep.
There isn't a lot of value in the actual cards, even at the time of release, and it's very expensive. So you can just go buy the singles. And it would be cheaper. Because there's also like 7 8-card packs. Anyway, that's the different discussions we don't need to get to again. We've talked about those. Yeah. So, alright. At the Roll20 hack, got 2 more shorter topics, and we can talk about a deeper discussion topic for a little bit. I got an interesting one to hit up on. That might have been either a backfire or someone's setting off fireworks a couple days late. Anyway.
I mean, yeah. Honestly, I'm actually kind of surprised. To me, that didn't sound like a boom. It sounded more like a mini earthquake or something. It sounded more
that's
like
why I thought it could have been a car backfire too, or something like that, which can happen in the street.
100%.
Yeah. Because it's a major road out there. It's not technically a major road, but it's treated as one because it is a cut between the two. It's a shortcut, basically, between two things, through back roads.
I've used to a freeway for a little bit, I get it.
Mm-hmm. So, avoiding the freeway, go through my town. You know? The One Ring, so the Free League's Lord of the Rings set, is getting, the 5e version of it, I should say, is getting Moria Through the Doors, which is a campaign module dealing with the Moria area.
Mines of Moria.
The Mines of Moria. I think the adventure is basically, I guess, trying to reclaim it and stuff like that. It looks like there's actually Moria Through the Doors of Dunedain. Oh no, the One Ring's getting Moria Through the Dunes of Dunedain, and the 5e Lord of the Rings is getting Moria Shadow of Castle Doom, which I think are pretty much the same book, but one of them's for their own thing and the other's for
5e.
5e. God. Sorry, thank you.
You're welcome. Those brain farts are the worst.
Yeah, I'm like, because I do know they sell for both of these. They sell for the One Ring and Lord of the Rings role-playing, which is 5e. It's interesting that the Lord of the Rings, the role-playing game, is their 5e one, I think. And their one's the One Ring. I keep forgetting that. That's a weird part about it. So yeah. It's the same version. Yeah. It's the same date, the same version for the 5e one is the Moria. So it's basically they're changing the name between the two of them so you can tell them apart. Which is probably a good idea rather than calling the same thing for the two games they're releasing for. So the Through the Doors of Dunedain is for the One Ring game, and for the 5e one is Shadows of Castle Doom.
Yeah.
And there was a Kickstarter, so we might have talked about this last year. I Probably, maybe.
I don't remember doing it, honestly, but
we've talked about some stuff from Free League before, so this could
I know, and we've
could have slipped through the cracks. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to also talked about something that, in fact, I know we talked about when they did the 5e conversion thing, where they like released.
Yeah, the Lord of the Rings one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So they really only talk about the One Ring version of this, but again, the other one is just a conversion of the same book with a different name. So, you're not you're not losing anything if you get Shadows of Khazad-dûm and you're doing the 5e Lord of the Rings book. You're not losing anything. It is the same adventure, just converted over. Okay,
yeah, just
cool.
Which system do you want to use?
Yep. I think their system's pretty good. Free League Press has a lot of good systems, but I can see that there's plenty of people out there that probably like doing just the Lord of the Rings 5e anyway, because, 5e.
Yeah, it's 5e. I mean, personally, it's like, I actually don't think 5e fits Lord of the Rings as well, because there's just too much magic in 5e.
I agree. I do agree. I do think that's one of those things that I haven't really taken a look at it, but I think we talked about that when it was originally released. That Probably. There was some issues with that we looked at. But, I haven't heard much about it overall from anybody, so I don't know. But, yeah. So, but, apparently it was a Kickstarter last year, and the pre-order is up now because it's coming out... Let me get the exact date. Do you know the exact date anywhere? You might not. Soon? What's the release date? That's not that. Let's see if I can get a release date somewhere. This is a pre-order with early access. If you include this item in order, the physical order will ship in a few weeks. However, you get access to full PDF via drive-thru RPG short after purchase. Okay, so if you buy it now, you get the PDF. And if you want to get the, yeah, so you get the PDF of it now, but if you want the physical version, it'll be in a few weeks. So, coming soon, and yeah. Hey, look! A pre-order that actually gives you something. If you pre-order it now, you get the PDF now, or in a couple days.
Yeah.
Wow. Looking at you, business. I'm not going to bother. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it's cool. Adventures for books is cool, and hopefully these are really cool adventures that deal with you. Adventuring in Moria. Probably trying to reclaim it for the dwarfs or something. Whether you want... Probably very dwarf-centric campaign, or maybe like some allies of dwarfs and stuff that being called upon to help them or something to clear out the halls and reclaim it from the orcs and goblins and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see anything saying they did any changes to classes. I'm looking at the core rulebook synopsis on their store page. It doesn't say. Oh no, 6 new classes. Okay, so they did add 6 classes. So maybe they did change things up, probably to make more combatant things and less magic.
They probably have 6 classes, and then they probably will mention a number of ones which are appropriate to the system.
Yeah.
The last thing to talk about today, which is going to be in the YouTube docket, but isn't on the Twitch docket because I just didn't feel like changing it after I added it in. Sorry, Twitch, I'm a little lazy and I already updated that. Anyway, Mausoleum, a Gothic D&D 5e location guide, which Momo brought to our attention. So it's funded with 16 days to go. It is, if you like Gothic areas, and this is entered Grave Hollow, and it's a location guide. It's information for places you can go, specific mini adventures, things like that. A bunch of NPCs, some archdevils, a deity, some subclasses, a lot of stuff that's very Gothic.
Honestly, I would almost call it a setting guide,
I would call it I would call it a setting guide, but I would call it more of a semi-generic, because it is the city of Grave Hollow, but I feel like the way that they're presenting it just from the information, is it's meant to be a Gothic city that you could probably throw into basically any other setting or something like that. So it's sort of like, hey, you need a Gothic city with a bunch of information and stuff in here that makes it unique, and you can add it into your adventure. There you go. Yeah. We also have some mini adventure stuff to give you hooks to do different things that you could expand upon.
Yeah. No.
And they do it. I don't mind stuff like this. I think it's really cool because it's.
I think a lot more. I think they should make. In fact, I think there should be a lot more things made which are small regions or like cities that people can basically prep a lot of because it'd be a lot less work to basically make a world that has several cities that other people that are from other things, and you can have really super crazy fleshed out cities with a lot less work, which I think would be cool.
Here's the thing too about it with something like this. There are usually places you can find that you can place something like this. Like, I could say if, like, I was doing a Pathfinder game and wanted to include this city in it, I'd throw it in Ustalav. It's just another city in Ustalav that's been there that no one talked about or something like that, or that, I'm just adding it in there as a new place that's there. Ustalav's the kind of creepy, Gothic place anyway. Perfect fit, Or, like, there's other places that, like, you can kind of fit it into.
Yeah, or that undead place that like zombies in Pathfinder.
Oh, possibly that one too. Yeah.
It starts with a G. Geb. Thank you.
Yeah, because it's Geb's next to Nex, and the two countries are named after the people that founded them because they're really asshole wizards that just are like, I'm Geb, I'm gonna name my nation Geb. Well, I'm Nex, and I'm gonna name my nation Nex. We're gonna kick each other's ass. It's actually
yeah. Yeah, and this would also be, no, I actually think stuff like this, like, I'm probably not going to go for it, but I think it's really cool.
Oh, no. The thing is, like, I am not at a point in time where I can say I would necessarily be super interested in it because I'm not looking for this kind of thing, but if you are looking for it,
it would probably this really just, I actually think it looks really cool. I'm just not super into Gothic horror settings.
I use them here and there a little bit. I think
Ravenloft was a fun game to run. I think it'd be fun to do more horror stuff. But, although, wait, is this for a system or a system agnostic?
It is technically set for 5e, I will tell you.
Okay, yeah. Then I definitely wouldn't, because I just don't think 5e is great for Gothic.
Like, I think the location,
fine, but I don't think it's great.
I think the basic location and setting are going to be fine for anywhere. Like, if you could use the NPCs, if you're going to be using the subclasses, the backgrounds, those are all 5e. Same with the magic items. So it's sort of like, it is more for 5e than anything, but I'm just saying that, like, probably about, like, 40% to, like, maybe 60% of the information in this book is probably system agnostic, It's the location, it's the lore connected to that location, that kind of stuff.
That is why I like the idea of setting guides a lot, is because they're just full of good ideas that you can steal.
Yeah.
The best GMs steal shamelessly.
I like to do the steal and adapt. So it's like I do the
that's what I do.
I do the this is my legally distinct version of that.
Yep.
It's not a lightsaber, it's a psionic spirit blade.
Yeah. It's a
I'm not the one the first one for that shit.
Here's my city of Vorvosa.
I wouldn't be that bad, but yes, they do the same kind of thing, man. There's a lot of influence to be gained from a lot of places and stuff like that, and some ideas too. And what are we not but creative things that take ideas and run with them and create our own versions of them. So yeah,
I mean, every idea has already been done, so why not just steal?
Yep.
Ideas are, what is it, like a penny a pound or whatever?
Yeah, they've got some organizations and a lot of key players in the city and stuff like that. And again, even when you have NPCs, if their stats are 5e, again, you could just probably either not stat them out or stat them out in whatever system you use them for if you want to use this in other stuff. It's the great thing about a system like this. It's not necessarily built to be setting agnostic, but a small setting like this, like that is like a micro setting, maybe not microsetting. Maybe microsetting. I don't know. Maybe that's the way to say it.
I honestly wouldn't call it a microsetting because I feel like a good city can be a big setting.
I know, but I'm like, I think like macro would be the entire setting, so something like in the middle, a decent sized setting of information that could be used anyway. Okay. My brain would mumble on about this for a while if I let it. So, okay. Are we ready to talk about our deeper discussion topic for today?
Sure.
Alright, so this is something that was interesting because it's been a discussion point in some of our groups, and something that you've actually expressed very interesting, and that is tactical adventures or tactical TTRPGs. Certainly with me diving into recently...
Intermediate. It's an intermediate setting.
Ah, thank you, intermediate. That's the word that was eluding my brain, which was good. I'm going to get rid of this page, so I'm just going to max it.
Sorry, I thought...
No, thank you for finally remembering what I could not. I was trying to think of that for a while, so I highly accept that as a... there you go. That's what I was missing.
Okay, sorry, what's our topic?
Tactical TTRPGs, or tactical adventures, in such things. Because that is something that we've been discussing, and certainly speaking, earlier this week, I took a deep dive into the combat of D&D 4e, which is 100% a tactical game. Like, you have tactical bits of combat and plenty of other systems. And tactical combat is something that is... I think the idea of it is often expressed in a lot of ways in RPGs, but its execution isn't always the same. I think that's the best way to say it.
In fact, I know there's one flaw in most TTRPGs, well, in most TTRPGs with magic, I should say. Because it's not a flaw you can really have in others, but it's a flaw in a lot of, in my opinion, Pathfinder. I don't know if Pathfinder 2e, I haven't looked at the spells, all the spells in 2e, I've looked at a ton of spells in 1e. But I also know there aren't many... Anyway, there's no abilities, non-magical abilities, I know that much. Anyway, the thing I generally dislike is too few games have a draw ability, like the ability to draw something towards you. Like fire, or from attacks to, whether it's just you aggro them, or they can only attack you, or they get this is what I like about 4E, is you have the whole marking system where it's like, they have penalties to not attack you, but if you attack,
yep.
Defenders
get marks. A lot of tactical combat and abilities, especially control abilities, sometimes deal with pulling, pushing, or sliding creatures, repositioning them for best advantages, or to take advantage of the terrain. Yeah, 4E is pure tactical. It's one of the reasons that when I talked about that combat, deep diving into it again, it was an interesting thing to basically start at the top and be like, hey, you are not going to be able to theater of mind this one. I'm sorry. You may want to, but
you can. It's just you lose a lot of what it does.
It's okay. I will preface it. You can. It's very hard in a challenge. If you are up for that challenge, go ahead and do it.
I don't think that's what I'm. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm saying is you can theater of the mind 4E. You just lose a lot of what it is. It becomes it's hard. Like, you can say I push them away, and then it's like, okay, well then who's still, like, you don't actually keep track of where everyone is as closely, so things are a little bit more loosey, and you have to kind of estimate things.
That becomes hard because, again, a lot of powers and abilities are based on those numbers and positioning and stuff like that.
I agree.
So again, like, it's Theater of the Mind 4E is an incredible uphill challenge, but it is one of those things that it doesn't really allow it. It doesn't disallow for it. It doesn't allow for it very easily. Yes. It is one of those things that I kind of would 100% suggest not even, unless you are up for like a huge challenge that's probably not going to be great for your game, don't try it.
I don't think it's a challenge as much as you lose part of what makes 4E 4E. Because I think it's just...
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's less of a challenge because you can always just estimate. You can say, okay, so that ability is about that range. I'll say you hit about 4 creatures. There are ways you can go around it. So it's like, yeah, it just takes a lot more adjudication and a lot more, and it just loses its It loses a lot of its tactics.
But again, tactical combat, if we kind of define it as what we mean by that, because we should, because tactical adventures are also there. It's where things like position, movement, and terrain all matter heavily to how a combat goes. That all 3 of those things play for it. So you can have a tactical combat in pretty much any system that runs it. I'm not going to deny that. Something like 4E is much built for that because all 3 of those things are built into it. Where
I would argue that there are a number of games which do not lend themselves to it, such as Fate or.
Oh, I will agree with that too. I was just saying you could.
If you wanted to try, it's just you don't really gain anything by doing it.
That's also true. It's like there's certain things, tactical related things can matter in certain systems, I think. But environment could matter, positioning could matter, that kind of stuff. And my brain just fried out because I what was my third one I said? The first one I said, god damn it, it was position,
terrain, movement,
movement, terrain, and terrain, movement, position, terrain, and there was another one that I was thinking of, and I've already lost it. I said it, and it was great, and this is my brain and how it works. We'll just do those 2 for now. There was another thing related to it.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Position, movement, and terrain. We'll say position, movement, terrain. That's fine. I mean, that was what I was thinking. And again, if I'm talking about something like a World of Darkness game, World of Darkness, combat is not the key unless you're playing Werewolf for real. Technically. And then Werewolf is pretty flash and pants. I'm going to tell you.
Yeah, but even in Werewolf, you can do Theater of the Mind pretty easily.
Yes. Those 3 things don't really come up very heavily. Your position could matter, the terrain could matter, the movement around there could matter, but it really doesn't necessarily. It doesn't mean
strong rules for them. You know?
It doesn't mean that you can't add flair, because I guess the other part of tactical combat actually is planning actual tactics.
I would agree and in fact I would describe tactical combat a little bit better. It's where or a little bit differently. It's where the act of planning a tactical game is one where the act of planning or management of some kind comes into play in combat.
Okay.
And if that is important in combat, not comes into play, because I think it comes into play in a lot, but because you can I think even how you manage your spells in 5e can be considered a form of tactics, because it's like you're using your resources in a way. But I think that's a minimal part of tactics, because I think that but yeah, movement, position, and terrain are very important.
I think they're expressions of that tactics. Then I think that's the kind of way to think about it.
Basically the more moving parts, the more moving parts the system has. Okay, this is actually not quite. Yeah, I would say the more moving parts that the system has for terrain, or no, for environment. That's the word. The more moving parts the system has for environment, or the more generally the more tactical it is. I would say.
Yeah, I think it's a thing that the nature of tactics and a tactical combat comes down to what we're seeing here, to what we're kind of talking about here. Like, I think the reason why we kind of define 4E as heavily as we do as tactical is because that kind of idea of the tactical thoughts and planning are very important to a lot in 4E. You know, the idea that we have to think and plan that out and know what ability we have that will make our position matter, make our movement matter, or make our, environment matter. We'll be part of that. I think those things are like, it's two sides of the same coin of what builds tactical. So I think it's one side is the planning and understanding of the tactics you're going to be taking. The other thing is the components which allow the expression of it, I think, is kind of where we're at to discuss this. So.
Yeah.
Okay. We kind of defined it pretty well then, I think, with those two things. So we got the two...
Actually, I did find one other thing, because I was just kind of curious. But I like it where this thing says tactical planning is reactive. It responds to immediate changes. It is centered around a known end goal. It needs to be executed quickly and efficiently. So basically, it's basically things that need to be done in a very short period of time. Is basically more of the definition of tactics. Well, this is basically tactics versus strategy, is what I looked up. Yeah, so it's like basically though it's where you can where small changes make a big difference. I think that's another good point for tactics, where it's like small changes to what you're doing actually make a difference.
Because I think because of the nature of a lot of conflict in TTRPGs, a lot of combat, you can certainly get things which I would say are very tactical, and it's not necessarily impossible to go strategic also. I think that just strategy is going to be almost secondary in a lot of ways, because that, as you said, it's a little bit more on the long-term things. And you're not going to have as many opportunities for that, I think. It's not impossible. Yeah. But just less than more tactical stuff. And again, sometimes you're not using strategy or tactics. I'm sorry, there are plenty of 5e battles, because 5e is a very simple system and doesn't really necessarily rely on that kind of thing, or just hit a thing until it dies. Whether that's with magic or physical attacks, it's still the same kind of thing. I'm firebolting it. I'm hitting it with an axe.
Yeah, and even in tactical games, there are ways to make those work. In fact, I was kind of going to go on, like, when I mentioned the whole polling thing with 4E, that the marking system. Like, I'm so sad there is no system for that. Like, the only thing you have in 5E for that kind of marking is Compel Duel, which only paladins get, and only gives them disadvantage to attack anyone but you. And it's a concentration spell. And it's a concentration spell that forces them to attack you, meaning you're probably going to get it broken pretty fast.
Yeah.
Plus, they have to fail a wisdom save ahead of time. It's like, it's really not the best. It's the only draw ability. It's the only ability that you can use to prevent your squishies from being hit.
Yeah. So, certainly speaking, there is a lot of... Now that we've kind of defined everything, and we can kind of get into some of the real details, I think. We have the definition. We can kind of talk about it. And yeah.
Sorry, there's another thing I just found. I've been looking up what people defined it as. I like this, where the outcome is determined by more than just your stats.
Yes, I think that's a good thing too. That's a good way of describing it too, because that certainly, I feel like, comes up a lot in, things like, we talked about, 4E here just a moment, and certainly speaking, stats are important, but what you use, when you use it, and how you use it, and how you give, advantages or disadvantages to your allies make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see that being kind of a component of that, definitely. Okay. good. We got that done. I think I wanted to talk about this for systems other than 4E a little bit, and use some of those as an example, because I think that's a good idea. Because certainly 4E is the easy one to talk about, because it is a very tactical game.
Yeah, I think Pathfinder 2E also has a lot of tactics, based on what I've read. I haven't actually played it, so I don't know for certain, but...
I can say that it is a definite...
it's less than 4E, but more than... Like, you can do Theater of the Mind with it, but I think it's closer to 5E, or it's better than 5E for its tactics, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think, like, it is better to have a map, but it's not necessary to have a map, and there's plenty of stuff that you get advantage for when it comes to things. Like, I have encountered, not to the level of 4E, environmental stuff while playing through Pathfinder 2E adventures, where environments matter, positioning matter, and movements matter. And those are big parts of that. And then there are a lot of abilities that, you can plan out and use them based upon those kind of things. There's a lot more variety in that way in some ways, which is interesting. I think, again, like, it's 5E's unfortunately one of those ones that's very low on that kind of thing. Low on the tactical totem pole. I think
Pathfinder... saying that it's going to increase, which I'm very happy about for the new 5E.
Yeah, I am cautiously optimistic about... Actually, no, I'm kind of like, we'll see. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm optimistic about it. I actually think they'll do a good job. I trust the designers of 5... It's funny, because I trust the designers of 5E, but I do not trust the Wizards of the Coast itself. I'm like, they might screw something up. But the game itself should be fine.
Well, again, I think... that's something that I forgot about when talking about that ranger earlier today. Something that was very important about is, I just thought about that. Is the comment I got was, that I think is a good one, is, because they put an arbitrary date of this year, the anniversary year, and forced themselves to be beholden to that date, the ranger probably could have used a little bit more time in the oven, or like another Unarmed Arcana to like work out some of the details that were like, a little bit weird about it.
I think that remains to be seen. Honestly, I'm not worried about it.
Again, like, I don't think it's a major thing and there's not a lot of problems, but like, it's that idea that like, maybe they rushed things a little bit. So that's what makes me worried. Because I do get the feeling that, like, they are...
I actually do get that a little bit, too. There are certain things which I feel like they were pushing for. I think that's why it's so late in the year they're releasing it. It's because they basically delayed it as long as they could.
Yeah, for the time they gave themselves. It's just... Yeah. I don't know. I'm hoping they're adding some pack. I agree.
Yeah.
I hope they do.
Oh, no, and I know they will. It's just... Yeah, so there are just other things, so... more of the classes and stuff, I think will be a lot less all positive, but I think there will be plenty of good things coming out of it. But yeah, as far as tactics go, I like tactics. In fact, like, it's so funny. Traveler, I like that game. It was originally apparently like very wargamey when it first came out, and it's obviously become less so. But what I really love about it is there's the core rulebook, which I'm like, combat's kind of lacking in here. And then I realized that there's an expansion, or another book called, it's not Mercenary, that's a different one. But it's something like that. And it basically just adds a whole bunch of extra rules to make everything super tactical. And I'm like, oh, I love this. Like, it adds, like, covering fire and other stuff, it's like, and I personally am, like, rewriting it a little bit because I feel like it's a little clunky, but ultimately I plan to use it. Almost, like, with just a few tweaks. And that's the one thing that's hard about Traveler, is they're like, okay, you can use this rule. Okay, so you notice there's this rule in the player's handbook, or in the core rule book, and there's this rule in this book. Basically, use whichever one you feel fits. And I'm like, screw that, I'm just gonna, like, do something else. No, I think, I very much like a tactical game, which is funny because I'm not very good at tactics. I will be completely honest about that. Yeah. So what is our topic again? Like, what is our topic like? Where we're talking about?
We
like,
were talking about
tactics.
We were talking about tactics, basically.
Just talking about tactics. I wasn't sure if there was like a, just.
It's the thing that like tactical games are pretty. What was I gonna say? Okay, it was just to bring up the fact and talk about tactics, define them, and kind of like give a discussion on them as a thing that we tend to. I think it's because there's a big heavy popularity between things like 5e and this kind of stigma that still exists with 4e. And I'm going to tell you, older editions did kind of middle ground. Like, I'm sorry, 3.5, Pathfinder, they have some tactics, but not. It's still the essence.
The problem with Pathfinder 1e is that tactics are optional, and that there are basically you either have to have a group who understands that you're going to be using tactics, or everyone just get the biggest hammer and smack, because you can win so easily just doing that.
It's the thing that it's easy just to do, like, again, like, if we consider, like, I'm sorry, Joe and Tavel, they are very simple and one note. Joe does add a little bit of stuff there, but there isn't a lot of tactics to Condis. Condis gets big and hits things with a hammer. Yeah, Tavel shoots things with arrows a billion times.
Yeah, whereas I wanted to build, in fact, I'm surprised based on what I've learned with 5e that I was able to build as much diversity into Ada as I did. Because I can either be defensive or offensive. I can either add, like, 2 times my strength to attacks instead of 1 time like normal, or I could go defensive and have a billion AC. So basically I can do one of those 2 things, high damage or high defense. And it depends on what's needed. Generally, high defense, I'm starting to realize, is more needed, because, honestly, Condis can crit for 1,000,000 damage.
Condis is very... has an okay AC, but is not quite, but straddles that line of glass cannon sometimes with the kind of the way that it's built. It's most barbarian-type characters tend to be that.
Like last combat, I went down... It was so funny because I actually had an AC that was higher than the person could achieve without rolling a 20. And they rolled a 20 twice. They didn't confirm either time, but they rolled a 20 twice.
I think that also comes into the kind of tactics you were fighting as. You had a melee character and a spellcaster together, and that automatically made things quite awful for your team that way.
And I made all of those saves, it just made me take half damage, and also made Condis kind of out of action, meaning he couldn't deal the damage he needed. I needed to save myself. So it was kind of this weird situation where I got both unlucky and, well, yeah. I wouldn't say we did bad, and that's the other thing too. Sometimes tactics, you can just get unlucky.
And that's the thing is, a lot of, like, enemies and pre-made books and monsters and, like, NPCs will have a tactics sheet. It's what they're planning on doing in a normal combat. It is a version of tactics for them, not just the player, but it is, like, pretty simple tactics most of the time. It's sort of like, do this ability, do that ability. Grand! You have done these abilities.
The one thing I'm actually starting to realize that I dislike about Pathfinder is that, and this may also just be because of the way the book is, rather than like Pathfinder, all the other books, but the issue is that you're either fighting like 1 or 2 strong enemies, or a bunch of weak enemies. And there's no middle ground where it's like a big enemy and a bunch of weak enemies. Well, it doesn't help that there was supposed to be that, actually. We just kind of screwed that over in the last one.
I can tell you though that from my knowledge how it kind of works and how it is, there can be that battles like that. It's like, technically speaking, there's a good variety of all those types of combats. There's just one big creature, or there's a bunch of smaller creatures that kind of add together, or there are some of those combats that has one bigger and some smaller. Or some of the times, like, maybe that last one ended up being, like, two not quite super big characters, but two relatively big enemies, you know? Because they were both, like, basically your CR enemies. And so, you know, working together, they were much more of a threat than, you know, alone.
Yeah. You know, and, I mean, if you want to make 5e more tactical, definitely try and think about, you know, where or what the roles from 4e are so helpful. In fact, I realized that Pathfinder talks about roles in a way. They don't necessarily say you should have roles like this, but they actually give a list in second edition. They give a list of archetypes that you can build towards, like a brute, a caster, you know, for NPC building, by the way, not for player building. So it's kind of interesting that they actually acknowledge that these roles exist, which does show they have a thought on tactics. They just don't tell you how to use them, which I think is disappointing, because 4e tells you how to use them.
Yeah, no, that's true. 4e does a very good job of defining various roles, and I think the thing is, when you look at the Player's Handbook, the first one, it just focuses on each of these classes is this role. I think as 4e evolved, they basically were like, "Hi, I'm a controller, but I have a little bit of striker abilities," or "I'm a controller, but I have a little bit of leader abilities," or "I'm a controller, but I have a little bit of defender abilities," and similar, like, amongst those, that they started building those, and I think that was a very good, like, kind of development.
I agree. I think it helped, because you really don't, like, now I'm like, because I read through 4e, I keep periodically going back to read through 4e just because I'm kind of curious about it. And yeah, I think there was a lot of, the issue is that a lot of characters, because there's so many abilities. That's the one nice thing about 4e. There were just so many abilities. Honestly, go through and steal them for 5e. It's great. But the thing is that there really weren't single groups. You know, it's like, if you really think about it, your fighter had a lot of, or your defender had a lot of controller abilities. Your, you know, leader had a lot of, you know, striking abilities, just by the nature of having so many abilities.
I think it was also because, like, controllers just weren't as important. Not that they weren't, but, like, if you think about, like, in the first book, there was one controller, it was a wizard. So,
yeah,
you know, it's an interesting class, but it's never, like, needed as much as other classes.
I think the order is, you know, you need striker, defender, and then you need leader, then controller.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and so we can see that from what we talk about here, like, you know, Pathfinder 2nd Edition does introduce a little bit more tactics, and it's not like you can't use tactics or things like that. Mm-hmm. Like, I can tell you, I will always remember there's a combat I ran in 5e in Children of Wrath that was, I made a tactical combat because I made a combat where the enemies were going to be highly tactical. Basically, it was a desert situation, and they were going between two dunes, and the enemies were basically up on top of the dunes, shooting down with bows and stuff like that. They had a distinct advantage over the situation. And so it was very interesting to see how that entire combat went. And how, like, unfortunately, the players really didn't react very well to it, I'm going to tell you. They managed to beat it, but it was a tough combat for easy enemies.
And that's the thing, though. You as a GM need to introduce tactics. Like, if you're going to use tactics, you need to introduce the idea of tactics to your players. There are ways to do that, and I don't think I'm qualified to tell you, because I need to run more games. And annoyingly enough, I've actually run a lot of games where monsters are kind of the primary conflict. Not the only conflict, but the primary conflict. So I don't actually have a lot of, so I don't use as much tactics when it comes to a monster or like an animal.
I think it's also a thing too, is that, like, it depends on what you're fighting against. Like, if you're fighting against a bunch of humanoids, they're probably going to be more tactical than, like, an animal. An animal has
Yes.
very simple tactics as an enemy, but like figuring out the balance of what you want your enemies to do and what your players are doing. Again, like that was the thing that like it logically made sense for the environment there, but since it wasn't a straightforward battle and it's a 5e game, the players weren't as well adapted for a thing like that to happen. Oh man, they're being smart and using their terrain against us. Whatever will we do?
Yeah, and that's why I think spells like Spike Growth. I love Spike Growth because it's a very tactical spell. So, and actually there are other things like Wall of Fire and stuff that don't get used in 5e because they don't do a lot of damage. But honestly, the best way to use Wall of Fire is to block off an area. There are people that are beyond that passage. I'm going to put Wall of Fire here. If they want to come to us, they have to walk through it.
Yeah.
You know, like that's tactics. You know, that's actually one of my favorite ways to think. And there are a lot of like, you know, movement restriction stuff in 5e, and there are a lot of ways to use it, but nobody picks them because they don't do a lot of damage. And also, most people in 5e don't play on a map, so it's hard to say, I block off this area with plant growth or spike growth, you know? When you're not thinking tactically because you have theater of the mind or because, honestly, it's just, yeah.
It's again, that catch-22. With theater of the mind, it can be very helpful, but also, like, unfortunately, it's the easy choice. I don't know if that's the way to put it, but, like, you know, I like theater of the mind. I do. Don't get me wrong. And there's a lot of times where 100%. That it's probably better to do, but there's also times where, like, I'm like, it's just, I gotta be honest, a map just serves people better.
I mean, I'm someone who says you should use maps wherever possible, from maps of towns to maps of regions, but I'm also someone who really likes maps and really likes making maps and makes a lot of maps, even if they're never used. I've made so many maps.
You can honestly also find free maps online, too. Or pay for some decent ones if you want something a little higher quality.
Yeah,
like just a map pack for pretty cheap, like $5. Get you a bunch of like maps someone's made. You know.
I actually. So there's one. I actually should just even shout them out because they're so amazing. Let me find them real fast. I actually have them saved because I need to do this at some point. They're called Sezpeku.
Okay.
In fact, I will link them in the chat if you're curious. They're Patreon, but so it's basically it's their Patreon page, and if you subscribe to their Patreon page, you get access to all of their maps. Meaning you only have to you could basically just pay $5, get access to all of their maps, download them all, and then unsubscribe if you really want to. So it's basically $5 for all of their maps. If I remember correctly, I think it's $5. But yeah, I've been planning to do that at some point. I just don't have the time. So, yeah.
No.
Yeah, $10 is everything.
Okay. So definitely that gives you an option of like what you want to see.
Yeah.
And again, I kind of talked about it there. The use of maps does definitely help because again, like I think that's a discussion of maps versus theater of the minds to a different degree, which is a good discussion to have as part of this, but it's not critical. You know, that's an entirely different thing about what you're using for it. I think the idea here that we're kind of trying to get into is that if I am doing an adventure and making it a tactical kind of combat where a lot of those things like the planning, positioning, the, you know, environment matters, maps are... they're like pretty important, not necessary, but help so much.
It's hard to make tactical decisions when two people can have different ideas of what's happening.
Exactly. You know, and I think that's why maps are so big when it comes to tactical combat. Again, you could have a map and not have tactical combat in it, and that's just fine. It could just be for positioning and simple stuff like that. You know, I've had plenty of 5e games where we've used a map, and it hasn't been all that tactical. You know? Could be that way. But,
I mean,
you know, it does. I mean, it just steps in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think that, you know, I mean, 5e is making a lot more steps to basically be like, oh, this shoving is a thing, or moving people is a thing, and I like that. I like that it's going to be a thing.
Yeah. So we look forward to that, and other than discussing what tactical combat is to a degree, and like introducing it as a concept for a lot of players, I think that's a good place to be for this one. There's like the beginner's guide to, I want to add tactics to my combat, you know?
I've gotten, and that's the thing too that's hard, is that tactics varies so much depending on the system.
Yes.
Like, I can actually tell a lot of good tips for tactics for 5e. Because I've actually learned a few. Like, for example, you know, since you can split up movement, and that's 5e, not everything lets you split up movement, you can step out from behind a wall, attack, step back behind a wall. And then you can have fighters protect, if there's a narrow passageway, and you could just have a hallway where your fighters protect the hallway and you can step out as needed. You know, like, that's one way to do it. Blocking out passageways, I mentioned. You know, those are some very basic concepts.
Like, there are systems that are very theater of the mind heavy, where I could say tactics can matter, even them in those. Like I've mentioned, you can add tactics to combat something in World of Darkness. Hey, Shadowrun. Shadowrun, I don't see a lot of people using maps for it, but I'm going to tell you, there is very good use behind it, and also there's a lot of tactics behind that kind of thing, because, hey, it's a system where firefights matter between guns and stuff. Taking cover? Pretty big on that one. No one really wants to stand out in the open and shoot at each other. You know, that's a good way to get shot. You know?
And
take cover, like, get position. Yeah. Hey, think about SWAT teams where they use tactics. You know, that would be a Shadowrun team using kind of like either paramilitary tactics in combat with each other. You know, I'll take this angle, I'll like get this cover, that kind of thing. You know.
Yep. Yeah, that's why I like a lot of Traveler's got a lot. I mean, that's the one thing I had to mix them out. It's funny because, like, I feel like Mongoose Traveler 1e I think is slightly more tactical than 2e, but I like the 2e systems better, so I've actually kind of merged them. That's where I'm saying, like, I've taken a lot of Traveler's still. It's not all Traveler, but I feel like, because, like, there's a way to increase cover, like if you're like behind half cover and then you crouch, because you actually can take a move action to crouch behind something or get prone, it increases your cover by 1. You know, it's like they have tiers of cover, and it's like stuff like that. I'm like, oh man, you actually have so much more. You're so much more interesting if you mix it. Yeah, but yeah. So Traveler's got a lot of tactics. Again, that varies a lot too.
See that in that one, you could say the addition makes a difference on how the tactics work there.
Yeah.
As I said, like older editions, they are definitely got a lot of things that are map based. They don't need to be map based, but they definitely easily could be, which can help add tactics. I think certainly to things like Pathfinder, D&D before 4e, you could add tactics in very easily, but I feel like things like maps help a lot with that. But again, those systems are a little simpler and older, so it's a lot harder. And I think that's the thing, too, is those systems, if they aren't necessarily built, it's a little harder to do. So you have to kind of look at how built it is for tactics, too, sometimes. But I think each system in its own can have tactics. Tactical combat, whether you're having your players be tactical, or the enemies they face be tactical, or some kind of combination of the both of them. And again, I think it's that good thing that you mentioned. If you are going to use some levels of tactics, maybe introduce it slowly to your players or something there to get them used to it, especially if you want to use that for your combats, so they don't get overwhelmed. Again, as much as that desert combat was difficult for them, it wasn't impossible. They managed to win in the end. And that was probably a good idea for them to understand, hey, sometimes I might use the environment against you. Be careful for it. Be ready to use it on your own advantage, you know.
And that's really how, and in fact, actually, now that I think about it, that's really how I would introduce it. You just include a lot of environments, and you as a GM know how to use them in your favor. You know, and so you basically just teach the players by example, like, okay, well, this player steps out, attacks, and then steps back. It's like, wait, you can do that? You know, it's like people don't think about that kind of thing all that much, and they're like, oh, that's annoying. But then they learn that they can do it, and you know, so it's, you know,
you can add aspects that teach your players and allow them to, you know that stuff. Or again, if you're going to be a more tactical game, explain that to them, or you know, be prepared with things that help with those. Like, as I said, Shadowrun, it can be pretty tactical, and it's a pretty easy system to be very theater-minded with, but maybe having a map a couple of times for some major locations might allow them to make that a little easier. Think about it a little bit more.
I think that tactics are interesting because, like, if you have a group that's got really good tactics, you can throw extremely, like, you know, like what would in, let's say, 5e is like deadly, and you could do it like triple deadly to people who are good at tactics. You know, like there are ways. It's kind of, I think, in some ways that, you know, you also have to just recognize when your players are using a lot of tactics. If there are a lot of players who like tactics, then you're probably gonna have to throw more of them, even if you're not something you expected. You know, so
there's definitely a lot of use to tactics and a lot of good to help enhance combats and make them more interesting. And I think that's the one thing that I think also to kind of put it out there is, when you talk about something like tactics, why is it an important thing to talk about? Well, we talked about how, like, 5e, it can be just a slog. And it can. You know? It can just be smash, 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 back and forth, and that can be boring? It's one of those issues they're working on. Again, like, I think the entire slog of high-level gameplay where it's just they smash into each other until they die. The idea of fixing that and making it better is a good idea, because that's not necessarily fun. Especially the enemies were just damage sponges for the sake of being damage sponges. You know? Yeah. In fact, that's not tactics, that's just simplicity.
Yeah, and I want to say, after the Pathfinder game, I don't think I ever want to play Pathfinder again, because it's actually just, it's so straightforward. Like, I mean, Momo said, oh, there are ways to do tactics, but I'm just like, when it really comes down to it, the fact that there are just so many instant win buttons for mages, and like so many, like, it's like, if this works, which it doesn't always, you win.
There are a lot of those, and I think it's the thing that is a issue that exists in a lot of things with mages and stuff like that. I will not argue against that.
Like in 5e, someone casts Fireball, weakens a whole bunch of enemies, then a fighter runs in and smashes them all. Like that's at least teamwork. But in like 5e, it's like, okay, you basically, your mage can point and kill half the room, and then, you know, but, you know, they can't kill that. So I don't know. It's just like, it's weird to be like, here I have this character who can do good against different kinds of groups, but then I can really only ever fight the strong people because Momo kills all the weak people super fast. It's like, it just bothers me in a way that's just like, it's not fun. It's not fun to, like, basically kill all, okay, fighters, go in and fight the big guy that I can't insta-kill.
I think it's also the thing that there actually isn't a lot of that instant kill, the real instant kill stuff that actually can be as helpful as it seems. It's just the fact that Momo specializes in that. And
Momo and Lightning
Necromancers
know
specialize
what
those.
Is. Yes, but also, like, Momo and Lightning know all the good spells too. They know which ones are.
I'm not gonna lie, there certainly is a lot of, like, builds and stuff that are just like this in a lot of ways too, unfortunately.
And that's the thing, is, like, I know Momo and Lightning know those, and I'm just like, there really is a point where when, like, someone can just go far and above, like, what you can do. And that's why, and, like, yeah, maybe I would play Pathfinder if it was with a group who was a lot more roleplay focused. But,
well, they are decently roleplay focused. I think it's just the fact that, well, Lightning really doesn't get into that. Lightning's a very simple character, doesn't really do a lot of crazy shit. You know, I'm just saying, you know.
I mean, I even feel like Ivona, like, I feel like Momo is, like, half roleplay, half, like, basically they're kind of somewhere between okay. I mean, to go into archetypes, do you know about like the archetypes like a storyteller versus an actor versus a anyway, but basically the idea is Momo's somewhere between like a munchkin and I would say a actor. Maybe a storyteller.
I don't see the munchkin stuff though, because I'm sorry, it could be so much worse the way the munchkin does this with how the system is.
Munchkin as an archetype, I forget what the actual archetype is called, but Munchkin as an archetype doesn't mean they will only build as powerful as possible. It just means they like to game the system to make their character powerful. But they can hold back if they think it's...
Momo isn't really doing that, because I know the system. That's what I'm telling you. Momo is a relatively simple necromancer. It's just the fact that necromancers have a lot of, especially at this level, instant kill stuff or stuff that can disrupt the battle. There is low-level stuff that does that. I'm going to tell you, if you're playing, and it also depends on the campaign. If I'm playing a campaign with things that are humans and or have relatively low will saves, a witch with a slumber hex just destroys everything.
Okay. Yeah,
Because Slumber Hex is a sleep spell, but it's save or go to sleep, and it doesn't matter hit dice. Or hit points.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, yeah. I agree that it's not as bad as it could be, but... And he just said, yeah, I'm a necromancer. Necromancers have a lot of gross spells, but... Anyway, just as a player, I just don't feel like it's as that fun. Like, I feel like there's just not a lot I can do because it's just like, well, okay, I guess
I think it's the difference. It's the difference between you throwing out a fireball, which could be possibly doing the damage, but is like, might not instantly kill, versus Circle of Death. Now, granted, Circle of Death is a much higher spell, but high level spell, but it is save or die for things of certain hit dice. I understand where you're coming from, but it's also one of those kind of like weird positions where I'm not sure what necessarily the easy way to counteract that is because of the nature of the system.
No, I know, and that's why I'm saying I don't think I'd ever really want to play Pathfinder again, because it's like you kind of like, so many spells are trash, but then other spells are broken. Why aren't you going to pick the broken ones when the other ones are trash, you know?
But I think also it's like... It's not necessarily broken, because also, like... How can I put this? In different ways, you are just as broken as Momo's character.
I mean, yeah.
As the GM, I can safely say, in different ways, you are just as bad when it comes to being broken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's hard is that mages. Actually, I think Pathfinder. I think I know. Actually, okay. Here's a good way of putting it. I
can definitely say
what I'm feeling is the what 3.5 and Pathfinder both have a horrible amount of. 5e has some of it, but it's not as bad, and that is linear fighters, exponential mages.
Yes and no, and it is there to a good degree, but a very good fighter build can be just as gross as a mage build. It's just that, you know, it comes down to situations, and the exponential growth is there to a degree. I think it's the same thing in a lot of systems. Like, even 5e suffers from that like, certainly a lot of times wizards just overpower very rapidly. And I think it's an unfortunate part about a lot of these fantasy games, is you just can't get away from that to a degree.
You can. 4E did it.
Yes, 4E, I think... I will agree, 4E was the ultimate balancer. But 4E is very unique for a lot of reasons, I think, too.
Yep. Anyway, it's just, I don't know, part of me is just like, man, I should say, high-level Pathfinder, though, I just don't like it. Like, it feels like it's going to be this weird, where, and then skills, it's like, you have to have a skill, otherwise you won't succeed. You know, like, high-level...
Yes and no for the non-succeeding thing for the skills. It's just that, like, Highlander Pathfinder lends itself to having at least one person with a skill, basically, at that point in time. You know, it's like, it doesn't need to have everybody have it, but at least one person should have it, kind of, at that point in time, for best play. Again, also depends on the game, too, a lot of times. There are games where there are certain skills that never come up on, no matter what.
Anyway, we kind of shifted the topic a bit. I was just kind of, I don't know, I'm just griping about Pathfinder, so perhaps we should we'll
go to our weekend tabletop. We'll talk.
I honestly, like, low-level Pathfinder, I loved. High-level Pathfinder, I hate it.
I can honestly understand that. The thing is, I've had a lot of fun with high-level Pathfinder, so it's sort of like, that's the kind of thing is like, I think it's just that there's some, I do not know what's tailoring your experience, unfortunately. But, like, I both understand and, like, kind of like, I'm like, it's a thing I don't know where to address it to help mitigate that, if it could be. Like, I think it could be to a degree, but the problem is, like, I also just don't know how to, because sort of, like, my experiences, I've experienced every level of Pathfinder. I've experienced 20th level Pathfinder, and it's worked. I've ran 20th level Pathfinder, and it's worked. And I haven't had a lot of problems. So it's like... I don't know if it necessarily is something to do with... Because necromancers, I really haven't dealt a lot with. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's the adventure. There's a lot of, like, weird details like that I'm like, I don't know where that's coming from the thing. It's hard to tell. Is it the adventure?
Maybe it is the adventure. I just feel like it's just, like... You know, like, what's funny is, like, even the... I mean, maybe it is the adventure. It's just, like... You
are fighting a lot of people. It is a people-heavy adventure.
True. I don't know. I'm just... And... I mean... Yeah, because, like... I know there's basically this thing, like, that's the reason I brought it up, because, like, that's why I was all, like, if you remember in the session, like, 2 sessions ago, or... where, like, basically we're fighting the person with the... What is it, Bargeist? Or a Jackal or something like that?
Bargeist,
Yeah, Bargeist. We're fighting the Cleric and the Bargeist, and, like, Momo cast the insta-kill thing, and I'm just all like, well, technically you couldn't have, and I just didn't want to, like... I was like, should I? I don't want to be that kind of person. I wasn't fun. I wasn't having fun just killing things. I wanted to fight.
I saw it too, and I understood where you were kind of talking about it, but for me, I think I wasn't mentioning it or being kind of pushing as much about it for a couple of reasons. One, I think I've been feeling that there had been a lot of, like, already tension in the session. Remember, I talked about how my feelings about that session.
That session was.
I could already feel that at that point in time. So that was something that I was like, I might just want to get this as quickly done as possible. That was the first thought. And then it was like, it would have to completely redo the turn and stuff too, and like that's kind of like, and like, there was a lot of stuff that I'm just like, I kind of went along with it, I just didn't like bother to a degree. Yeah. But I certainly, like, I'm like, yeah, I understand that, like, instant death stuff like that to that degree is kind of like, well... The thing is, like...
And you wanna know what's funny? I feel like most of my annoyance at Pathfinder has been this dungeon, so maybe it's just this dungeon.
This dungeon has... It's okay, but there are certainly some issues with it because it is a lot of, like, specific types of humanoid creatures. The Red Mantis are all rogues. They're gonna have great reflexes, avoid that kind of thing. Focus you to do will save based things pretty much, except for the one cleric. Okay.
Yeah.
The Grey Maidens, fighters. What are they good at? Fortitude saves? Anything else? No.
Yeah.
No.
But for me, it's like, I mean, like, I remember the first room I jumped in and, like, both enemies were basically dead immediately. Well, I got to fight the Managala, but, like, then the other one was just taken over. And then, I go and, you know...
Tavel machine guns some things, too.
And then Tavel's machine gun, it's just like, okay, he kills things. It's like, okay, what is my job? to stand there and tank. Oh, look, I got crit twice. I'm not even good at that, apparently.
See, that's definitely a thing that I can kind of say I can understand is the way things have gone. And it's the thing is, like, I think it's because you have two people that are the same role, and you have a third one, which is normally the backup role for the two people in that same role. What do I mean by that is, physical combatants, normal, straight-up fighter types, normally you have one melee person, and then maybe a backup of a ranged one in a team for good balance. You got two melee person, a ranged person, and then a divine and arcane caster. Like, you don't have either a support caster like a bard or a rogue type character that do balance out teams like that. And I think that's the thing that I tried not to do it too much, but I maybe could have pushed it a little bit more when we began stuff. Pathfinder, especially first edition and older editions, really helps to have party balance to a good degree. It's not 100% necessary, but party balance does help a lot.
And I think, and that's the thing, I actually really like Joe and my tactics. Like, I'm in front, Joe behind, but then you have, like, Tavel, who's just machine gun, which is fairly annoying, and then Momo, who's insta-kill, which is also annoying, and then okay.
I think it's that they, again, two fighters can support each other for various reasons, but as soon as you get a third one, it becomes very hard. Like, if you were a rogue getting into sneak attack position, it might not matter as much as with Tavel doing their thing. Tavel would try to, focus down one enemy. You'd probably do the same, but in a different way. You'd probably be doing that with Joe, so, like, you and Joe would focus one enemy while Tavel might focus another one. That kind of thing. It's an interesting juxtaposition sometimes on the balancing act between the two. And it's just an unfortunate thing that, like, unbalanced teams can work, but they do suffer.
I think where my problem is everyone in this party is focused on damage output. Momo can insta-kill people, lightning fireballs, Joe hits hard, the other one's machine guns, and then what am I? Like, I'm someone who's, like, I tank, but I also can maneuver. I tank and maneuver, basically. My whole thing is that I can basically jump between enemies more easily. Meaning, what I do is basically taken care of by, what I can take care of best is also what's taken care of by Momo and Lightning. And then what else I can do is taken care of by, so it's like the things I'm able to do are taken care of by everyone else. I think that's partially where I'm getting annoyed. Is that the focus as everyone else has taken is really just making me useless. So the only thing I can do is tank, and man, Pathfinder, it only takes a few good hits and you're down.
Pathfinder can be very deadly system, unfortunately. I think it's one of those things that, like, especially, like, the swing that exists within high-level play, I think, is the kind of thing you have to think about almost.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily going to, like, instant, like, here's the thing. I fucking can use instant death on you guys just as much. I try to avoid it. And I think that's the one thing that, like, I've learned my lesson a lot now, that instant death stuff, especially, like, even at this level play where, yes, you can undo stuff and, like, I can get resurrected and stuff. It's fine, but it's just, like, there's some things that are just not fun. Like...
Yeah, no, I agree.
Like we saw the Wall of Thorns. The Wall of Thorns is, like, it's just such a shutdown. Like, the Wall of Fire, yes, it was a shutdown, but you weren't using it to shut down the current combat. You were shutting down the possibility for other combat. And other people to be added in. That is really a much better use of that kind of thing, but that doesn't really exist for, like, that person using the Wall of Thorns. But, I don't know. It's the kind of things of, like, okay, like, I was certainly less annoyed at, like, what's his face? Like the lady's like fear gaze was kind of weird, but I was also like, it's just for.
That didn't bother. That honestly didn't bother me. That fight didn't bother me nearly as much.
Well, again, it does shut you down, but there's a difference between shutting you down for one turn and shutting you down for an entire combat.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, then she was dead before I even got there. Got back. So
she, as an individual character, takes a lot of damage. The thing is, like,
even without Tavel, it's like
it was actually really smart for you to get her last, because she's telepathically connected to the other people, and she would have warned the fighter lady, that the cavalier lady, teleported to her, and then joined with that battle, and they would have had over a minute to prepare for that combat. Which then she would have had her tactics on. I mean, it would have been very difficult, because her aura and stuff are very difficult to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know. We'll see in future things, but man, I've not been having fun this dungeon.
Well, you're probably not going to have as much instant death stuff, because, hey, it's going to be filled with, like, a lot more undead and stuff, and they're immune to that!
And Mum will just take them all over and it won't matter.
I think Momo has a limit on the control undead. I think you can only cast it so many times, and I think... Well, sorry, I opened a different window and got everything. Control undead...
Yeah, anyway.
Anyway, so, yeah.
Well, it remains to be seen, but I think I built a very interesting character who can basically do a lot of things very well. And yeah, I think that in one way is broken. Like, I actually built a character who could, in theory... solo things if I wanted to, certain types of things. So, like, I'm not saying my character is, it's just, I feel like because everyone is just so focused on high damage, it's like, I can't touch anything because I'm not.
I'll look up Momo's ability, because it's not spell control undead, because that's 1 minute per level and limited hit dice, so it must be another ability. I think it's the thing of, like, again, I think necromancers are unique builds and very interesting builds, and I have dealt with some necromancy before, but I don't think I've really used a lot of the spells Momo used, because they're the same kind of spells that are like, in enemies and stuff that kind of suck for it, maybe. I don't know if I've gone
we'll see.
Cool there.
We'll see. Like, I love the bullet fight. I think I didn't mind the assassin fight that was basically just me and Joe and the bottom of the elevator.
Yeah, I mean, like, there can be some, I think, good fights that are there.
Yeah, but, like, it's funny because it's like, I feel like maybe that fight was good because the casters weren't there.
Again, it's also like, Tavel is a high damage dealer. I think Tavel I'd say, isn't as gross as they could be. I'm not gonna lie. Tavel hasn't took the feat Deadly Aim. You take Deadly Aim this level. That's really gross. That's power attack for range attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And you're what, 12th level? Is it now?
Yeah, 13th.
13th level. So that would be -4 plus 8 damage to each of those arrows, and Tavel can hit with up to 5 arrows in a turn.
Yeah.
That's 40 extra damage. I built an archer before. I know how gross it can be. I built a fighter archer, and it was just gross. I enjoyed it, but, like, we also didn't have a team in that team that had, like, a real frontline fighter the same way. So,
yeah.
I took the archer archetype, which was able to shoot in point blank without incurring attack of opportunities. So I would oftentimes be point blank with things, shooting them. I had to be that way. So, but that was the thing that we had to do. So it was an interesting idea. Anyway, but yeah, Wednesday, if you missed it, that the entire thing was finishing up most of the what's it called?
Yeah, just a bunch of fights where we did the Bastion, Grim Hollow? No.
Grey Maidens, you kind of beat them up, and it's the Deathhead Vaults. You kind of finish
Deathhead Vaults, that's what I'm looking for. That's the word I was looking for.
Deathhead Vaults are pretty complete. There's still some cleanup, but it's pretty well done.
Yeah, we just got one more floor and getting the guy out, which I
there's no more floor. You don't go upstairs. You don't go upstairs.
Oh.
There's like a full garrison of people upstairs. You don't go upstairs. You don't need to.
Oh. Well, then where's the guy?
There's paperwork down here that we'll discover. He's in a hidden cell down here.
Oh, okay.
It's something you're going to find when you look through those paperwork.
Going through the paperwork was what we were going to literally do next.
Yes,
so yeah, no.
and it will reveal there is a hidden cell.
It was just a lot of combat last fight where I went down because I got crit twice again with a guy who... Because that's the thing, is like, that person did really high damage, but she could not hit me unless she rolled a 20. Mm-hmm. But she did like 30 damage per hit. And I have like 90 health, and I was already down a bit. And then I also got like hit by Divine Strike. What was the
Flame Strike?
Flame Strike. That's what
it also hit you with the is it I can never remember the Chaos one it's called because it's Holy Smite, Unholy Smite, Order's Wrath, and I never remember the Chaos one.
So it's like even though I saved against both of those, it just took me down to like 50 health, and then I got hit by like 2 30 damage attacks. Because even though the person could literally only hit me 1 in 20 times, and she rolled 8 times and hit me twice.
So channel negative energy on a cleric is just gross. It is
she also did that. Yeah, so it's like I just got hit by a lot of things.
Channel negative energy on like evil clerics is just such a thing that makes them so powerful and such a threat.
So it's like I honestly should have been able to take all that, because that's the thing, is like I wasn't worried about that. When the person hit me finally that one time, and she did the channel and did exactly 18 damage, which put me down to 0. And then I got back up to 18, and then I got hit again for like 30 damage by that. It was just like, oh my gosh, stop hitting. You literally have a 1 in 20 chance. It was just like, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it went okay, but I think it was like it was just a lot of combats too. So,
I mean, a lot of combats don't bother me. I really like combat in these kind of games, so that's why it's like the fact that I'm not having fun. I'm just like, what's going on here? And it's hard to describe. Maybe I'll try and figure it out more so I can talk to you about it. But...
if that's the thing is, like, I think if this dungeon has kind of worked on you in a certain way, there's something that's there that if we could figure that out, we could maybe like adapt things to it. But there's a lot of like issues with an older game like this that. There are underlying issues that certainly are very difficult to take care of, if at all. Like, I like Pathfinder First Edition, but I also know Pathfinder First Edition does a lot of things really badly. You know?
Yep.
It's the unfortunate that because it is an old edition.
Yeah, it's so funny, because it's like, I honestly, I don't. Like, now that I'm actually, like, played it finally for the first time, I don't like it. It's just got too much clunk.
Well... It's the thing that, like, one of the things that I kind of stay with it a little bit still is the fact that I know the system. That helps me. And certainly speaking, like, when I look at something like, I don't have to adapt an adventure from Pathfinder 2nd Edition, too. You know? Yeah. It means if I have to adapt less adventures, it's better for me, too, sometimes. Mm-hmm. Because that's the other thing too, is that there's a lot of really great plot-wise adventures in Pathfinder First Edition. There's also some terrible ones too. But, adapting them to Second Edition is really hard. I do want to do the probably next day Second Edition adventure. I think I talked about doing like a more test thing before then, but I don't know if I'll actually get to that before we do that, because we've been doing pretty good to just kind of go through the adventure too. You know.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll kind of see where things end up.
Yeah, and we'll see. Maybe I'll have more fun in the zombie dungeon or whatever, the undead dungeon.
The undead dungeon. Yeah. Again, like it could also just be this adventure too, because this adventure is so focused on people to a degree too. It is a people adventure. The last two ones I have been very people heavy, I've noticed.
Yeah, part of me kind of wishes I wasn't advised to not go grapple build.
I understand, because generically, grapple builds suck. In this adventure, grapple builds would have been okay.
Yeah, that's why it's like Momo and Cell basically were like, no, don't do a grapple build. They're terrible.
Again, they generally speaking kind of really are. It's just that particularly, like, this is the adventure where it actually would have kind of been helpful.
Yep. So that's why, and I know that's like kind of, but it's like whatever.
I don't think I did anything else. Did you do anything else this week, tabletop related?
No, I mean I've been prepping for something, but it hasn't come to fruition yet. So,
other than my normal stuff, like again, like if you want to see a deep dive, I went into like a pretty. It still took like an hour. A pretty decent summary of everything in combat from 4th edition. So if you want to go check that out, it is up on my YouTube already. That's a pretty good thing if you want to look into that. That's a good. It'll give you a real good understanding of 4th edition, honestly. I think understanding the combat, you understand 4th edition and how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
Anyway, that sounds like a good point to end.
Yeah.
We got some good discussions. We understand it. Again, like, Pathfinder 1st edition, I very well could understand people having problems with it. It's an older system. And it's not only, it's an older system with a lot of clock. So, I don't necessarily recommend it for everybody anyway. Yeah. Alright, everybody, I think we'll get going. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll at least be back on Monday. And Worm, where can people find you, and when will you be next?
Yeah, I'm DiamondWyrm. You can find me on twitch.tv/DiamondWyrm or at DiamondWyrm on Twitter. You can find me tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. PDT.
Cool. I have social media link below. That's the last thing to say. Go check out all my other stuff if you're on Twitch and on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, just join me live on Twitch at some point in time. And also, do all the algorithm stuff for my channel. Anyway, cool. All right, everybody. Bye.
Bye.